Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has caught the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland in a grandiose lie. First of all, according to this article, some Trump White House records were torn up and taped back together, National Archives says. Then the Department of Justice is looking into whether he destroyed records. Is there any evidence, video footage? Forget about people saying he did this. You're always going to find somebody saying that Trump did something without any evidence. Some Trump White House records were torn up and taped together, National Archive says. The National Archive said? What evidence do they have? Did they see him tear up a piece of paper? Is it possible, God forbid, that someone else could have torn up a piece of paper? Is it possible that Trump tore up a note, a memo that he wrote? You mean a president can't tear up a memo that he writes? Or that someone else tore it up? So Trump is actually being investigated for destroying government records, possibly a note that he wrote in the Oval Office that he tore up. That he wrote that he tore up because, God forbid, 30,000 deleted emails on secret servers running outside of the United States government, siphoning classified data. Oh, that's okay. When they say, well, not prosecuting Trump would be a greater disservice to our democracy. That's all right. You can disregard that. Here, this is James Comey. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, they already tore apart the rule of law. They already decided not to indict. They already weighed the cost. They already had a cost-benefit analysis of whether or not to indict, and if not indicting was worse. And they chose not to indict Clinton. And Democrats, in the spin, they spin it and they say, well, Comey entered politics. It was a cover-up. It was secret servers outside of the U.S. government. You're going after Trump because people have said that he tore up pieces of paper. Okay? Here's the difference. Clinton's team, and I want a Hillary Trump 2024. I want to redo 2016. She should be the nominee of the Democratic Party. Of course, I'd vote for Trump, but we need 2016 all over again. They cheated Bernie Sanders, blamed another country for finding out, but I can go on forever about that. Clinton had servers with top secret intel siphoned out of the United States government. For 4 years, classified data was swirling around outside the U.S. government. Comey admitted, although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor brings such a case. How are you going to... They could possibly indict Trump. And hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. Share this segment everywhere. Hit subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel, the Stock Market Crash channel. If you want to give a super thanks to my super thanks, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And if you want to support my work long-term, my Patreon is below in the description and pinned comment. But share this everywhere. They could indict Trump on something he didn't do. See, they're desperate. 1,000 points down in the Dow, food prices going up, we're in a recession, 2 quarters of negative growth, the economy is shrinking, the housing market is going to absolutely tank a lot further. Interest rates are going to continue to go up while the economy shrinks, and then unfortunately there will be layoffs. And then corporate profits, like Michael Burry was stating, they're going to decline because inflation is eventually going to hit. It's already hit consumers, but it's eventually going to prevent consumers from paying higher prices. Corporations have been increasing the price of goods and services to offset inflation. Well, consumers eventually will say, no, we can't do this anymore. Savings are being cut substantially by inflation. Inflation is a tax upon the poor, especially. Real wages are down 4.4%. And food prices continue to go up, even though they said inflation went from 9.1% to 8.5%. So when you have inflation that remains at around 9%, corporate profits will decline, corporate earnings will decline. You have the market that's about to tank. You have the housing market that is going to descend a lot further. Interest rates are going to go up. This is all the doing of the Democratic Party. I mean, look, you have the House, the Senate Democrat, presidency, mashed potato brains Democrat, and so they started off with a horrendous economic policy, and then they were sued by oil and gas associations. Now they're sued by environmental groups, flooding strategic petroleum reserves, and then you have oil prices. Brent crude is over $100 per barrel, like I said it would. And I predicted all of this in September and October of 2021. Read my Federalist article. But ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to get him on two statutes, especially. Okay, one is destroying records, but there's no evidence that he destroyed himself records. He didn't have a dedicated team of people destroying hardware with hammers like Madam Secretary. Okay, so where's the evidence that he destroyed records? Because the National Archives says it? Because a revered government library said that he destroyed records based on a New York Times report where they took a picture of a toilet bowl and then there was a ripped up document there and they said, that's Trump. Trump put that document in the toilet. I mean, it's like these people are like, they're out of their minds. But Politico reported in 2018, the former president's unofficial filing system consisted of him ripping up papers and throwing them on the floor in the trash. Based on what evidence? There's no evidence. With Trump, it's always just, he did this, this is what people say, and then they investigate. Meanwhile, you have Hunter with 150 suspicious financial transactions and emails showing clear violations of the law. Of course, that's swept under the rug. But see, again, this is interesting because not only is he accused of destroying records where there's no evidence he destroyed records, then the issue is the second statute that he can get criminally charged is anyone who willfully or unlawfully conceals, removes, obliterates, or destroys any records, maps, books. Okay, so, but he's a former president, so they can't get him on the Espionage Act because he had those documents in his possession lawfully as the former president. You want to say that he had a dispute with the National Archives? See, in a court of law, they want to indict Trump. They're going to have to prove to a jury that he himself ripped those papers. They will not be able to prove to a jury that he himself destroyed any documents because the Politico or New York Times or any report that accused him of actually ripping up documents doesn't show any video evidence. It's just a report that says people around him said he would do this. So what? They didn't indict him for trying to overthrow democracy when he was accused of commandeering a limousine and throwing his dinner at the wall. They didn't. The Mueller probe that people on the left revere found nothing, like nothing. When they say, oh, well, there was a concerted effort to interfere in. There's a Politico article right before November of 2016 said that they found the man they always wanted, Trump. They were elevating Trump. Clinton's team and Democrats were elevating Trump because they thought he was unelectable. That didn't work out now, did it? Then they pivoted and said, oh, it's the Kremlin. They wanted Trump. Then we have an invasion while Democrats are in power. I thought it was supposed to happen while Trump was in power. But the statutes, if you look at the statutes, another CBS News article, it is also unclear how a central legal question, the classification process, and the president's role in it could be. Really quickly, the Presidential Records Act does not list any prison time. There's no enforcement mechanism. So you can't get him on the Presidential Records Act. You can't get him on destroying documents because there's no evidence he ripped apart documents. You really can't get him on illegally removing the classified data because he said it's all declassified. He's a former president. He wants a library. And that's why he had those documents. But here, it is also unclear how a central legal question, the classification process, and president's role in it could be. As the New York Times points out, none of the statutes cited in the warrant rely on whether the records were classified or not. That's a problem for Garland. If the statutes don't involve the classification process and it's just about illegal possession of government documents, he's the former president of the United States of America. So You're not only going to have to convince the jury that he himself destroyed records and that he himself had some kind of malicious intent to remove government documents like Clinton did. You wouldn't have to work hard. You had secret servers for 4 years. There was nothing secret with Trump. Inherent to owning servers is the intent to hide. Comey, that was a cover-up. So what Democrats will do is they'll take an obvious cover-up and they'll say, you see, he didn't find intent. Yeah, Comey's always on MSNBC and CNN and getting beautifully written, lofty public relations pieces about him in the New York Times and the Washington Post. Well, of course, he went to bat for Clinton. He didn't enter politics and harm Clinton. It was Clinton's own behavior. This is the funny thing about Democrats. When they cheat Bernie Sanders at that point would have defeated Trump. They would have gotten, I mean, I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. I was the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. I can tell you, I'm being objective now. I love Trump. I will vote for him 1,000,000 times, and if there's 1,000,000 chances to vote for him. But Bernie Sanders would have won. They would have gotten 3 liberal judges. They wouldn't have gotten Dobbs. But they didn't want to win with Bernie Sanders. They wanted to win with Clinton. And I said Clinton would lose to Trump. Once they cheated Bernie Sanders and then blamed the Kremlin for informing us. See, the DNC emails, this is what they always do. Their corruption, they spin into someone else's problem. So, or a plot by another country to inform you of their corruption. So when Hunter's emails, that story breaks, it's actually, you know what, former Intel chiefs write a letter to Zuckerberg or to Twitter saying, gosh, we think this is, malicious information from another country. Then you have American companies suppressing an actual story, one of the most important stories of that year, of any year. And so their corruption, like Hunter's obvious violations of the law, is now turned into a plot by another country. Bernie Sanders being cheated by the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz being forced to resign, is a plot by another country to inform you of how corrupt Democrats are. Therefore, another country is interfering. Still no one ever, they never looked at DNC servers. They said, oh, well, we confirm that our assessment is correct. They're confirming that an opinion is correct. They don't have any direct evidence. They indicted Russian intelligence officials based on Company 1. Company 1 was, of course, outsourced by the Democratic Party, just like the Steele dossier was, just like the whole entire thing was fabricated. Their corruption, they elevated Trump, they cheated Bernie Sanders, nothing worked out for them. Then they had years and years of the Mueller probe, couldn't find anything. They never indicted anyone for working alongside Russian intelligence officials. And so the thing is, what's happening now is they are on the ropes politically. They're going to lose the Senate also, not just the House. And they're going to be investigated for actual crimes. So they have to either indict Trump for crime he didn't commit or continue to investigate him forever on everything under the sun. They have 2 choices. And don't be surprised if they do indict Trump for something he didn't do. They've set him up and framed him for something he didn't do also. But Trump has caught Garland in numerous lies. The presidential records doesn't have an enforcement mechanism. There was no intent to sell any documents or remove the documents unlawfully. He was a former president with the power to classify and declassify. And there's no evidence at all. And he wanted a library. Big deal. There's no evidence at all. And he was negotiating with the National Archives back and forth. So you can't say that there was some kind of nefarious, diabolical plot by Trump. You can't prove to a jury that he wanted to, break the law as a former president who wanted a library. And the next thing is you can't prove that he destroyed any records just because somebody said he tore up records. Give me your thoughts. There's no evidence of that. Where's the video evidence? Anything that Trump is accused of, he is guilty of, but nothing that Clinton or Hunter is accused of, they're guilty of. For the people who say, oh, well, not indicting Trump would be a terrible precedent. The precedent has been set already, and it continues to be set with Hunter. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. I'll be back in a couple of hours.